reminds us that we need to keep our hearts open, which is not always easy, because sometimes we run into situations that are not nice, and we run into people that are not lovable, and that sometimes make it hard for us to love them even when we are trying. So today I want to do a meditation that leads us into opening up our hearts. As you're ready, take a deep breath and release. One more. Release. Now I want you to touch your heart. And allow your consciousness to move to your heart center. Allow your heart to open. And in opening your heart, you're sending the energy of love. First, send it out to the people in this room. And allow yourself to receive the love back from the people in this room. Now send that love out to Myrtle Beach, Surfside. And as you send this love, know that this love transcends you. And in this very moment, it is touching someone who feels unloved. In this moment, it is changing the lives of some people that we don't even know, simply by our sending them love. By opening our hearts to love, we are allowing healing to take place in our bodies, in our minds, and in our affairs. Now I want you to imagine this love energy merging with the love energy of everyone in this room and everyone in the world. Allow your imagination to encircle the globe with love. And know that it is merging with people around the world in this moment who are doing the same thing. And by so doing, in our one own small way, we are helping to change the world. I let go and I let God. I know in the deepest part of myself that all that God is available to us everywhere, all the time. Now, as you go through this day, keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it flows the issues of life. And it is so. It's a pleasure to be with you today. I always enjoy coming to Unity Myrtle Beach, actually. And I always say that I'm going to come sometimes other than when I'm invited to speak, and it somehow never seems to happen. But I'm going to keep working on that. I'm always grateful, and I always learn so much when I come. I don't think I've probably ever told you about well, I've shared some things about my spiritual walk, but I never told you that my introduction to Unity was the Daily Word. My mother subscribed to the Daily Word when we were children, and that was my introduction to Unity. And I've studied a lot of the writings, if not all, but a lot of the writings of Phil Moore and others. And so Unity has been a part of my life for a long time. And so I'm always grateful to come and spend time with you. I thank the band for singing Flow, River, Flow. They always remember that I live on the river in Conway. And one time I did a talk or sermon on what I learned from living on the river. And it is amazing. I still learn a lot each day because I'll take pictures in the morning and a few hours later the river is completely different. So it reminds me to adapt and to change and to flow with the change. I'm very delighted to have my niece of the heart with me today. I have lots of family. I was at a family reunion a few years ago, and it wasn't my blood family. And somebody said on Facebook, Preston is everybody's cousin. So I told him, either by blood or by love. And many times the relationships by love are much stronger than those by blood. So I'm very delighted to have her with me. Also, today this title came to me, Learned How, but Forgot Why. Learned how, but forgot why. And as you hear that, I'm sure you're beginning to think of some things, and if not, you will in the next few minutes, that you learned how, but you really forgot why you were doing it. But I always think of this story. There was a young girl, and she was learning to cook, and she was learning by observing her mother. And when her mother was cooking a ham, she cut the end off of it, and she put it in a pan. And so she said, Mom, why do you do this? She said, I don't really know why. My mother always did it. So grandmother was still living in the house with them. So they went to grandmother and said, Grandmother, when you cooked the ham, why did you cut the end off of it? She said, I don't know. My mother always did it. Well, as it turns out, great-grandma was still alive. She was 95 and she wasn't anybody's joke. So they went to great-grandma and said, Great-grandma, we learned from you that you cut the end off of the ham before you put it in the pan. Why is this? She said, because the pan was too small. There was a practical reason. They learned how, but they didn't even know why. And is that not the case so often in our lives? Things that we've been doing over and over, and we never stop to ask, why? Why am I doing it? And that's part of the reason, darling, we don't dream, because we don't ask why. You can only dream if you keep asking why. Why? Why is this the way it is? Why does it have to be that way? And unfortunately or fortunately, I'm one of those little children. Deep down inside of me is this little boy who still asks that question. So it causes me many sleepless nights and anxious mornings. really. And then of all things I decided to do was to study philosophy. We don't have answers in philosophy. We ask why. Why? We have traditions, but even with the traditions, we ask why. And that is sometimes a very troubling thing. It's very troubling because you want to get to some place where you feel you have grounding. And so what we do, unfortunately, is we really don't have any, so we create it. And often we create it in ugly ways. I don't know why she acts like she acts. So I decided all women are that way. So every woman I meet, I'm going to treat them like that. Okay? We learn how, but we never even ask why. Why am I feeling this? And of course, you know in unity that ultimately it isn't about her, it's about me. It's about my consciousness. It's about what I'm experiencing. And we as human beings are very good at projecting our stuff onto other people. We're very good at it. We do it all the time. Any of you on Facebook? Any of you watch the news? Constantly projecting our mess onto other people and not being willing to examine ourselves. I learned this, but why? The Old Testament or the Jewish Bible, some of the most lively people that I like in there are the prophets. They all had very unique personalities. And for some reason, in contemporary times, people think prophecy means to foretell the future. That is not what prophets did. They told the truth. They told the truth, and sometimes they told it in very strange ways because all of them had unique personalities. But what I like about them, or what I learned from them, I should say this, is that they kept reminding the people that you learned how, but you've forgotten why. You've learned how to do the proper sacrifices. You've learned what days are holy days. You have learned how to do a burnt offering, but you have forgotten why. And they get very graphic. They said, your burnt offerings have become as a stench in the nostril of God. It stinks. Not because the offering is bad, but because your motives are wrong. Your motives are wrong. So they were constantly calling the people back to what would be considered right worship. And right meaning you know why you're doing it. It's not just a symbol, but you know why you're participating in it. And then they were calling them to social justice. In the prophets, you will always hear, take care of the widows and the orphans. Take care of the widows and the orphans. They were, well, not only symbolic, they were literally the poorest people in the society. And pretty much that is true today. Mm-hmm. That women and children make up the poorest part of the population. And especially in those times, women could not have an inheritance. They could not get anything. And some of you are old enough to remember when that was pretty much true in America, yes? That it was very hard to pass things down to the daughter. It was passed to the sons. And speaking of that, sometimes people still do that. They learned how. but they've forgotten why. And I will hear people say, I'm not going to leave so much to my daughter because she's married. And he's not of the bloodline. Or she's not of the bloodline. So they will get our stuff. Why? Why? Because we think stuff matters. We think stuff matters. We think stuff creates us. We think stuff makes us important. Well, I'm living in a 2-bedroom condo, and the stuff is not making me feel important. It's too much stuff in there. And I don't know what to do with all of it. There's too much stuff. So stuff does not necessarily make you important. But now I'm going to share a very interesting idea with you. And maybe you know this in unity. And well, maybe this is one of those things where you've learned how to do the affirmations, yes? You've learned how to do all the right affirmations, but you have forgotten why you do them. Yes? Yes. We use them so often to make our little part of the physical and material world better. Is that why? Was that the reason why? No, it was to uplift consciousness. And when you uplift consciousness, you don't only make things better for you, but you make things better for everyone around you, or the radius of your thought. Yes? That's why the scripture says, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all things will be added to you. And then it goes on to say, where is the kingdom? And what is the answer? The kingdom is within. The kingdom is within. I'm a person of action, so sometimes that's hard for me. And I have to remind myself, pull back and go into the kingdom. Stop trying to manipulate the externals, which we often do, even when we mean well, with our family, with our friends, with the world. That is a big part of our problem. We are trying to manipulate externals and make everything right outside of us. It will not be right outside until it's right inside. Until we are aligned with the inside. The other thing is that what matters, I want you to hear this, what matters, you make matter. What matters, you make matter. Now, that's a play on words. Generally, what you're saying is what you're thinking, and then what you do. No. I'm saying something even more specific than that. Your thought creates matter. Your thoughts create the stuff. How is that so? We won't worry about that. I won't go into quantum physics and all of that to explain it. But you know this, and you get it, is the things that you think about on a regular basis tend to manifest in your lives. And you think, oh, where did this come from? I do it all the time, whether it's good or bad. Oh, you created it. What have you been working with lately? What have you been gnawing on in your mind? You have created this. So your thought matters because it makes matter. Your thought matters because it makes matter. Okay? So even all the things you have learned, and you forgot why, add that to the list. The other thing I want to add, and I think I said this already, but I want to say it again. All that the divine is is available to each of us everywhere, all the time. All the divine, or God is available to each of us everywhere, all the time. We don't act like that, do we? But it's good to remind ourselves. It's good to remind ourselves because so often we do feel like, oh, has God forgotten me? Why am I going through all of this? Open the heart and let whatever those thoughts and feelings are flow through. Don't hold on to them. Because what thoughts you hold on to are going to draw thoughts of the same kind. And you're going to create something that either you want or don't. We learned how, but we forgot why. Socially speaking, the Hatfields and McCoys, they fought for years. They didn't remember why. They didn't remember why. They fought for years. We see skirmishes all over the world, people against people, and they learned to do that, but they don't know why, or if there ever was a why. Martin Luther King said 50 years ago that 11 o'clock on Sunday mornings are the most segregated times in this country. 50 years ago. Has it changed? Not much. There's fights, but not much. Because we have learned how on both sides of the divide, but we have forgotten why. So now, what do? We do like the little girl with the hammer. If we can find out why it's done. And if we can't, then create something different. Create something new. That is our gift from the divine. The ability to create new with every thought, with every idea, with every action. We create something new. It was mentioned in my introduction that I founded Youth Academy in Monrovia, Liberia. Some of you met one of my sons a few years ago who came. He's in Philadelphia doing well. And I don't know if I ever told you that story, but this is back to dreaming. This is back to thinking in a new way. The first son was playing soccer in Laos. And he saw my Facebook page and sent a friend request. I didn't know him, but I read his profile. I said, well, he sounds nice enough. So I accepted his friend request. And so we started chatting from time to time. And then he said, would you be my father? Let me get back to you. Because I really didn't understand what that meant. And I knew, but I had intuitively, I knew it meant something different from whatever I was thinking. So I contacted a colleague from Sierra Leone. I said, what does it mean when a young man asks you to be his father? She said, oh, that's a great honor. And then also I learned, of course, that they've been civil wars up to 2003. So many of them, their fathers were killed. So they have no father. So I agreed to become his father. Well, those who are fathers know that sometimes it's not quite all it's cracked up to be. First big father challenge. He said, Dad, things are not going well here in the house, and I'm thinking about going back home. He said, but the only thing about going back home, when you haven't been successful, that they shun you. You've gone away and you haven't done well, so they shun you. And so I said, well, what are you going to do? He said, no, Dad, you have to tell me. I'm like, I have enough trouble making my own decisions. So I said, well, let me pray about it. Let me meditate on it. So a day or two later, I told him, go back home. And he went back, and sure enough, he was shut. But one day we were talking about the children in Liberia. And this, I'm not one who's very emotional, but this kind of gets to me, okay? We were talking about the children and what they needed. And in talking about that, that is how the idea came for the academy. The academy is really not a school yet. We want it to become a school. But it's an afternoon, weekend, and summer program. Everybody there plays soccer. So we use soccer to teach life skills and leadership skills. And this little academy has been so greatly blessed in the past 3 years. We started out with 50 children, maybe. Now we are serving 125 children. We incorporated with the Liberian government, the only academy incorporated with the Liberian government. And we provide 27 scholarships. And so that, and I have not been, that's the other thing. I have never been on the continent of Africa anywhere, but I am planning to go in June. But amazing things have happened. Amazing things. Recently, I did a graduation speech. I went into the studio and recorded it, and it was played in the library. And 4 of my children are graduating that day. So, why am I saying all this? How does that connect with what we're talking about? It connects when we examine what we are holding. When we examine what we are holding and holding on to, it helps us sometimes to release and to open ourselves up to something that really is new. Isaiah the prophet said, God is going to do a new thing. A new thing. And we're going to miss it if we still keep dealing with only what we've already learned. We're going to miss it. But when we open ourselves up daily to learning something else, then it opens us up to newness, to change, and it has nothing to do with our age. Our age is what we call age, really only trips around the sun. It's only trips around the sun. Now, we decide how we want to see those trips. We decide. I meet with some of my classmates regularly, and I need much prayer. Everybody wants to talk about aches and pains. And they want to, I'm getting old. I said, let me ask you one question. When did you discover you were getting older? It started happening the day you were born, if you look at it that way. So why are you acting like this is now a big surprise? You've been going around the sun ever since you were born. So why are you making this matter more than it needs to matter? Why are you making it matter more than it needs to matter? And we can move it from age to gender to race or ethnicity. We can move it to neighbors. We can move it to family. Why are we making this issue matter more than it needs to matter? Now, love. We hear that term used all the time, and it's used in so many ways. There's so much ink is spilled over love. So much ink. So many cards. Yes? So many flowers at Valentine's and candy, and we say that's love. But what about the days when you don't feel like doing your hair? What about the days when you just want to be free around the house, and you know exactly what I mean? Free around the house. What about when things that were once going north start going south? Where's the love? The love is in accepting who I am and who you are right now as you are. Not creating you into something. I don't know about you, but I tend to, my friends and family and schoolmates, I definitely had rose-tinted glasses. And I thought they were all beautiful and all smart. And I have this dear friend, and she knew our classmates far better than I did. And she said one day, and this is in the early 60s, we didn't know about juvenile alcoholism yet. She said, oh please, she has liquor in that thermos. And I'm like, why would she say such an ugly thing? Without giving details, she was right. And then some other things she was, and I'm like, I would go home troubled. Like, why does she say these terrible things about? She was right. So a few years ago, I asked her, I said, well, what was I like? She said, oh, please, you were in a world of your own. She said, you didn't pay us any attention. I said, but I was popular. I was president of the country. She said, I don't care what you were president. You didn't pay us any attention. You lived in your own world, and you still do. So I told her the people in my world like me. So that's why I live in my own world. They like me over here. They understand me. They appreciate me in my little world. Okay? But yet, loving is not being unrealistic. It really is being as raw as she was, but accepting people anyway. And one of the things that I have trouble with doing, and I have all my life, is fixing people. Well, I'm good at it too, you know. I will write you a 5-year plan that will just blow your way. Part of that is good. And let me tell you what, I've been an educator for a long time. And what education means is not to fill in. Education means to draw out. So I can only draw out if I'm able to discern what's in. So in that sense, it's good. It's just that sometimes I do it when they haven't paid tuition. I see them in the grocery store and it's like, oh, they need to do, and they have never spoken to me. They don't know me, and I don't really know them, but I have a 5-year plan for them. So you guys have heard about Yama Fix Your Life, Fix Mode? I got her piece. But I don't want to be Yama. That's too much work. But loving, which is difficult, is good. Is it always nice? Is it always pleasant? Is it always a cup of tea? No. Love gets raw. Love gets rough. And love definitely has to deal with the truth. If you say you're loving and you're not dealing with the truth, you're lying to yourself. Because everybody is not necessarily likable, so it doesn't mean like, it means love. And let me help you out with that. Everybody, no matter who they are and where they are, want 3 things. They want to live, they want to live well, and they want to live better. Does that make sense? My view of that or your view of that may be different, but this is what everybody wants. So in loving, when you're working for a world that provides that, excuse me, then you're loving. Then you truly can love everybody without knowing them. You truly can. And that does not mean that you may not still have to lock the doors. Because you love doesn't mean that everybody is ready to accept your love or that they are loving themselves in the same way you're loving them. Let me tell you a little story. I have a goddaughter, and her sister is much older than she. And the sister had a longer relationship with the grandmother. And so it seemed like the grandmother didn't love her. And so she said to her mother and me one day, she said, I'm going to love Grandmommy this week. I don't care how she acts. I'm going to love her. 2 days later, she came back. She said, I tried. I tried to love Grandmommy. Grandmommy won't let you love her. Is that not true? Sometimes people won't. And as you know, let's do a little armchair psychology. Usually there's great hurt. And sometimes, again, that they have learned how, but they've forgotten why. They've learned how to shelter their hearts. They've learned how to shelter themselves, but they've forgotten why they did it. And so because they don't know why, then they think every situation when somebody is moving in too close, that it's a problem. Yes? They learned how, but they forgot why. And I want to close with this reading, which all of you have heard probably many times. 1 Corinthians 13th chapter. Though I speak with the tongues of men and angels, and have not love, I am become as a sounding brass or a tinkling cymbal. And though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith so that I could remove mountains and have not love, I am nothing. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned and have not love, it profiteth me nothing. Love suffereth long and is kind. Love envieth not. Love vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up, doth not behave itself unseemly, seeketh not her own, is not easily provoked, thinketh no evil, rejoiceth not in iniquity, but rejoiceth in truth, beareth all things, believeth all things, hopeth all things, endureth all things. Love never fails. But whether there be prophecies, they shall fail. Whether there be tongues, they shall cease. Whether there be knowledge, it will vanish away. For we know in part, and prophesy in part. But when that which is perfect is come, then that which is in part shall be put away. When I was a child, but when that which is perfect is come, let me say that again, then that which is in part shall be done away. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. For now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, But then shall I know, even as I am known. Now they are divided: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. Amen?
Amen. Amen.
I know that I speak for everyone when I tell you how sincerely grateful we are that you joined us today and how much we appreciate that message. You know, this is a time when I would make note of something in your message that touched me. But I would need another half hour to do that because I don't think there's much there that didn't. It was really a beautiful message, and it's very appreciated.